So looking back, the Adesanya-Strickland fight was one of the most interesting misreads that most people had, maybe in MMA history. I was very surprised, and then afterwards I was like, why was I that surprised? Because what Sean Strickland's very good at is dealing with straight hitting and picking up his legs. This peculiar style of Sean Strickland, where his hands are real close to the center of his body and they're right down the center line, and then what he'll do is reach out basically into the middle of the line between himself and his opponent and smother the line of the jab. Like so. Constantly reaching out, very hard to come around the side of. And it isn't just reaching for the jab itself, it's reaching for the jabbing hand. Look at Strickland's right hand throughout these clips and how it's always going towards Pereira's to check, not just to block it when he's using it. Constantly reaching out to check the lead hand here. Now, the obvious opening is on this side of his head, right here. But we'll get into that in a minute. Obviously, Pereira exploits that beautifully. A lot of other people haven't been able to. But I think one of the most interesting things about Strickland's game is that he is one of the only good teepers in mixed martial arts. He's constantly using it to disrupt the guy, break him off like that in the middle of striking. And that shit's really tiring. He was able to use it a ton against Imavov, who's a very good kicker in his own right. And although people make fun of him getting on one leg all the time like this, it makes him pretty hard to kick. He's always got his lead leg light, so he's already ready to pick it up. And when Izzy was on the back foot here trying to kick off the cage, he was able to just get in on him here, push him back further. Here's a great example, gets Izzy nice and close to the fence. Izzy tries to low kick off the fence, not always the best idea. Strickland pops him in the nose. So it's the combination of breaking him off when he steps into punch with this teep, or the back leg. I think one's the neb. Is the lead leg that's the neb? But those constant little jabbing push kicks to the solar plexus and the midsection. And the fact that he's pretty good at checking kicks whenever Izzy wants to try and kick his way off the fence. Love this teep here. Comes back with a combination. Normally only opens up like this against streamers, but one of his finest hours this fight. And where Pereira struggled in the hand fight when he fought Izzy, that's this hand checking this hand. Strickland is actually pretty good in the hand fight to begin with because so much of his game is reaching out for and checking jabs and straights. If you watch his fight with Imavov, there's an awful lot of like double hand checking into short jabs and crosses. Something Daniel Cormier was very good at. And George Foreman in boxing, and Sandy Sadler. So something really interesting from the Izzy fight is that when Izzy started hand fighting, Strickland tries to go two hands on one and front kick him. Doesn't work there, but later on, I've never seen this outside of like old Okinawan karate textbooks. Two hands on the wrist and kick the body. So here we are when Izzy starts extending that lead hand into the hand fight, especially when he's gone southpaw. That's a good cue for that. We'll talk about this later, but open stance matchup. Dricus was able to do some really good work checking this hand, actually. This is good hand fighting position for Izzy. He can swat this down and throw his left straight or his left high kick or his left body kick. Or the wonderful thing about MMA gloves, which you're seeing in 4-ounce Muay Thai now in One Championship, is that you can hold that dude's wrist, which makes stepping in and turning over this elbow into his head really easy. But Strickland does the right thing, takes his hand back, and instead of just trying to cover Izzy's from the outside here, he brings both hands to the wrist, picks his leg up, teeps him in the gut. Gorgeous. And again here, but a little fake and a punch in the face instead. And I think the really interesting thing about the teep in MMA is you don't see it much because people worry about it getting grabbed and you getting taken down. But it is at its best against other kickers. So if you're fighting someone who's very good at kicking, Israel Adesanya, and probably doesn't want to take you down, Israel Adesanya, the teep is going to be at full effect. Like you'd be an idiot not to try and use it. And he's able to keep nudging Izzy back towards the fence. He's able to break him off as he tries to come off the fence. It's just a wonderful weapon. And it builds into his pressure here. So for my clickbaity title today, I think I've done the rise and fall of Sean Strickland, but obviously, you know, a lost fight or 2 lost fights and a few wins is not a rise and a fall. But the obvious flaw to this reaching all the time is that it creates a giant pocket behind your hand. When this hand goes forward, this big window opens up here. And it's an occupational hazard. It's always going to exist because of how Strickland fights. Here is a 49-year-old Ray Safo sparring with Sean Strickland, and he does exactly the same thing to him. Boom, on the chin. Ray Safo, K1 legend. Go and watch his fight with Mark Hunt, which was voted the best kickboxing match of all time in Japan. And he does it again, body jab to left hook here, lovely. And a rare Sugarfoot Ray Safo axe kick at age 49. But Nastadin Imavov came out and tried to use exactly the same thing Pereira had done. Throws some body jabs, walks Strickland forward, almost gets him there. And there. The difficulty is that you've got a lot of space to cover to get a good left hook into that pocket. And there's a good chance he leans back. If you watch George Foreman doing his reaching stuff, he's always ready for the left hook to come around the side because it's the opening you're presenting. You've basically removed their jab, so you have to expect that they'll throw the left hook. What Pereira did beautifully in this fight by giving ground to Strickland and letting Strickland come forward was that he let Strickland get right on top of the left hook. He's walking right through it, basically. No chance of him leaning back, and he's on one leg as well, which doesn't help. And that's the best left hook in MMA. So it's a tricky hole to exploit like that. Flash forward to the big Dricus rematch, and he was doing a great job of just using his left leg to go under and over Strickland's reaching right hand. Lots of high kicks to get him reaching up like this. And then lots of body kicks when he does that. Crazy thing about Dricus, goofy as hell, but a really dexterous left leg. Much of Dricus' success in the second fight came from just giving ground. So the teep works really well when the guy's moving onto it. It doesn't even need a lot of power. It'll fold him in half like that. Works quite well when the guy's just sort of standing in front of you. The teep isn't great if you commit to it and it falls short. So if the guy's moving towards you and stops as you throw a teep for real, you get into this awkward position where you're just sort of like falling forwards like that. Which also means that the teep isn't a great chasing weapon. So Strickland was able to use it loads against Adesanya because he had him towards the fence or at the fence. But you don't want to be chasing a guy with them. So like this is a great example. Nothing to teep into. And then the leg becomes a liability as it comes down for a free low kick. But on the whole, moving around out in the open largely kept Strickland from teeping much anyway. Drawing Strickland forward also made his jab more counterable. So there's a nice right hand over the top. But like we talked about, it's hard to low kick Strickland. But if you get him stepping onto his jab, there you go, free low kick. Tries to time the high kick here. Tries to time the body kick there. Here's some nice work out of the double hand fight. You've got to strip your hands and punch them at the same time, which is quite hard to do. Here we go. So he ends up doing this windmilly thing where he pulls both hands down and then punches over the top with the right. Does it again later from southpaw. Lands a good shot there. But mainly it was the moving backwards and drawing Strickland forwards that won him that fight, and his awkward southpaw jab. That it's just, for some reason, Dricus du Plessis has a good left leg from orthodox and a good right jab from southpaw, and those are like his two good mechanical techniques. So Strickland not perfect, lots of holes in his style, but I think people look at him and go, because his style is goofy and not textbook stuff should really mess him up, when really his style is goofy because it like Everything's drawn towards the center line. If you throw jabs, straights, and overhands at him, he's going to have a field day. And his teep and his jab and his counter right hand are all at their best when you're going towards him. So he just keeps walking up to you and encroaching on you and forcing you to lash out at him. Dricus' best success came because he kept it all out in the center of the cage and was making Strickland pursue him and take big steps. Adesanya had a horrible time because Strickland was able to just walk up to him over and over again at the fence and keep poking him in the belly with teeps. And if you kick during a teep, you're going to get knocked off balance too, so it really makes you hesitate. Anyway, Strickland's fighting Anthony Hernandez this weekend. Completely different matchup because Anthony Hernandez, terrible on the feet, always gets stunned in the first round, brilliant on the mat. But then Strickland's takedown defense has been really solid and he gets up really well. So it's quite a fun one, given that it's a Strickland fight. Subscribe to the Patreon for all my interesting shit and articles. Cheers.